Whom shall I fear? Of whom shall I be afraid? Imagine if the writer of this psalm said, no one, the end. Would have been a short psalm. Would have been an even shorter sermon. But they don't say that. They begin by saying, whom shall I fear and whom shall I be afraid? But then they answer the question. They list some things that they may encounter, fears that they may have. If you want to check in your translations, they say things like enemies, foes, besieging armies, wars breaking out, days of trouble, surrounding enemies, parents forsaking them, people oppressing them, false witnesses spouting malicious accusations. So although they say, whom shall I fear? It sounds like they've got a good deal of reason and a long list. When faced with such challenges, it's okay to feel afraid. The psalmist isn't saying, I don't feel afraid. Or at least I don't think he's saying. He's trying to tell himself something or herself something about this. And I get the idea the writer's is not some brave or foolish warrior who just ignores the impossible odds. Because he's listing the odds. He's kind of, whom shall I be? Oh, wait a minute. Oh, hang about. And he lists them. I think there's someone like us. Someone like us who starts boldly, faces the reality, but still ends with what we will come to at the end. Now, I'm a chess player, so I'm trying not to use any more cycling analogies for a while, all right? I'm going to give you, hopefully the whole of 2026, I'll try and give you that off cycling, but it's unlikely. I'll sneak one or two in. But anyway, I'm a chess player, and I don't know if you've played chess or similar games, and I've noticed a trend in my games. I'm playing opponents, particularly strong ones. If they make the first mistake, I am all over them. I am really, really good at spotting mistakes and moving in for the kill. I see weaknesses and I'm there. Move after move. I'm in the zone. I can calculate. I can see positions 4, 5, 6 moves ahead. Channel them towards certain pathways. It's a beautiful thing when it works out like that. But if I make the first mistake, I start to get a bit tense. Especially if I'm playing against somebody I know I should beat. And before you know it, I make another mistake. And then another mistake. And all of a sudden, I can't see the board properly. And I can't think more than 2 moves ahead. And then my brain freezes. And it's like, Rob, what's going on? You're a decent chess player. And it's because I hate losing. I have a fear of losing. And that fear gets in my head, and I can collapse. When I'm winning, it's fantastic. When I'm losing, I just collapse. Fear and anxiety can stop us from making the right choices, can't it? And suddenly we're in a place where we can't make good decisions. I know that on the chessboard. But we can go there in life as well. You may be there now, in that cycle. I'm not going to talk about cycling, but in that cycle. And if you're in that place, or if you ever will be in that place, you've got a 3,000-year-old psalm. Written by somebody who's been there as well. I get the impression this psalmist is writing not simply from a place of deep faith. I'm not saying he isn't a person of deep faith, but I think he's writing from a place of deep experience. That's what I reckon. I get the impression he's been there before, and God didn't let him down. And this is one of the advantages of you and me getting older. We build up a wealth of experience of how God has acted and delivered. How following Jesus leads us beside quiet pastures and still waters. So I can list things. So I remember when Donna was made redundant from her job for a defence firm in Malvern. And our income dropped literally by half within a matter of weeks. She hadn't been there long enough for redundancy pay, so it literally just dropped by half. And then not long after that, we felt the call to train for ministry in mid-Wales, and I would be paid part-time. So not only did it drop by half, it dropped by half again. I know there's a mathematician here who may have won a maths prize. Well, half and half is a quarter. Is that right? You see, I'm okay. So by a quarter, we're down to a quarter. But But for 3 years, God provided on 25% of income. So I know he does. Not through my deep faith, although I'm working on that, but through my direct experience. Here we've had financial challenges as a church. We've had to come and be really honest with you about how the finances were going. Probably 2 or 3, feels like a lifetime ago, but it was not so long ago. And we got through it. We weathered it because God provided through you, through his people. So when we face other challenges as a church, like closed doors, literal closed doors, when we're trying to look for buildings to rent, however frustrated I get, and I do get frustrated, you may have experienced that. I know, and we know, not through deep faith, although I pray we have that, but through direct experience, that we will see the goodness of the Lord. Well, in here, this writer encounters literal enemies. They are literal enemies. He lists them. And his response is telling and helpful. When faced with trouble, when faced with enemies and foes, he says, kill them all. Oh, no, he doesn't. No, he doesn't. Do you know, he doesn't say that. When faced with enemies, he does not say, get rid of them. Instead, he seeks the presence of God. One thing I ask from the Lord, this only do I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze on the beauty of the Lord and to seek him in his temple. It's almost like he's in this world and you expect him to react in a certain way, and he doesn't. He reacts like he's in a different psalm. He says, no, I'm going to seek the Lord. You're like, well, what about these guys who are oppressing you? Is this our response in the day of trouble? To seek God's face? What a response. What a heart. Now, is the writer speaking about an actual physical temple here? Because he kind of refers to things like the tabernacle, the tent of meeting. He refers to the temple. Is he talking about that? Do we physically have to be there? A place where God's presence is made manifest on earth, where generations have worshipped him in the past? Or is he speaking of kind of a metaphorical place that we just need to go to? A place that we can find wherever we are, we can find God's presence in the midst of our troubles. Well, I'm going to argue for both. I'm actually going to argue for both. Because the Old Testament temple they're writing about had some big differences to this place, right? See, I'm that good at architecture, I realize it was probably different. But there are similarities. And here are the similarities. They're both places where God is worshipped. That's similar, isn't it? They're both places where you will encounter other people who come to worship God on a Sunday morning. There are places whose purpose, whose existence, whose ongoing existence depends on God. So yes, they're similar. Completely different in many respects, but similar in others. And they're places where we believe you will know God's presence. Temple and chapel alike. Now, if at times you come to this place and you simply can't find the words or the voice or the strength to worship or to sing or to pray, here, as in the temple, you will find others who will sing or pray and who will worship while you can't. People who are seeking God's presence. You see, this is what I think the psalmist is talking about. I think he's talking not about going completely on his own or her own to a place where nobody else is. I think he's talking about seeking God's presence with others. That's what the psalmist is longing for. Now, God is always present. I'll let you into a secret. He's always present. So when you leave this place, he's always present. It's that belief. We believe he's omnipresent as well as all-powerful. He's all-present. But there are times of focus for us when we together seek him deeply and he meets us deeply. Where we worship, we pray, and we listen together. Times such as this, We're together. You don't have to be. You could wait for it to come out on YouTube, sit at home, never meet anybody. We're together. Times such as the 24 hours of prayer where we will meet together. You'll have opportunities on your own, but we will be together as well. And like Moses, you may grow weary. Do you remember Moses? He was had to hold his hands up, didn't he? And he grew weary, and guess what? Some people helped him, and they lifted his hands. And sometimes we need brothers and sisters, maybe to keep away from our hands. You leave my hands alone. But maybe they do need to uphold us when we cannot lift our hands. Isn't it telling as well, though, that the psalmist says sometimes we need to hide in God? He will hide me in the shelter of his sacred tent. Do you know, maybe we need an area. When we've got room, we need an area for people who feel like that, an area where, they can just hide. They can be present with us, but they can just hide. And we know we don't need to bother them too much. They're just hiding. These are the seats for those who are hiding in God. We'll give you some space. We won't keep asking questions. Some people, what they might need is to come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest space. That's where they might need. Hiding in God. What can it mean? Well, it can simply mean you're not trying to generate an outcome. You're not trying to resolve some great issue. You're just hiding in God. You're not necessarily asking question after question. There's nothing wrong with asking questions of God, but sometimes you just need to just stop. You're not looking for big answers. You just need God. It's like the child who just needs their parent just to be. Not every prayer needs words. Not every song needs to be sung. But when we seek God's presence in the day of trouble, there may be another outcome other than simply hiding. He may actually set us on a rock or a high place so that people can see us, so that our head, once downcast, will be exalted. Then my head will be exalted, the psalmist writes, above the enemies who surround me. At his sacred tent I will sacrifice with shouts of joy. That's kind of, he's not doing it kind of under the radar there, is he? I will sing and make music to the Lord. Now, the way things are going, we're going to need a sacred tent because no building seems to. Anyway, that's a different story. But seriously, when we do emerge into a new chapter, and we should do this every time something big happens within our congregation and we go through something and we emerge into some new reality, we should lift up our heads. And there should be shouts of joy. I'm not a joy shouting person. I'll just sit quietly. There'll be shouts of joy going on in my heart. Don't worry. Don't worry. And there'll be singing and music, no doubt. And that's a pattern the psalmist has seen before. That's why he remains confident that he will see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. This is partly, I think, why he talks about gazing on the beauty of the Lord. Because if you're a deep theologian, you realize that no one's really seen God's face and lived. So you can't say, I'm just going to look at God's face in all its incredible awesomeness and then go back to my day-to-day life. You can't do that, not the fullness of it. But you can see God's beauty in what he's doing and what he's done and to some extent who he is. We can relate to the face of God when we see the beauty of God at work around us. In creation is often our first instinct. I see creation and I sense God's presence. Or we can meditate on God, can't we? We can use his scriptures, we can meditate on him. But what about fellow believers? Can we dare to see the beauty of the Lord in the lives of his children? Through those he's carried through adversity. So he's taken them from a place of trouble to a place of exaltation. And we say, that's the beauty of God at work in their lives. This isn't hero worship, where we kind of put people up and we worship them. It's recognizing the purposes and character of God at work in the lives of others. Do you know, this morning, you may feel afraid. There may be literal enemies that you have in mind. that you can name. They could be people, they could be something physical, it could be a situation. I pray it's not your neighbour, but who knows? I just want to sum up what the psalmist is saying. Don't seek vengeance, seek God. Now, you can do this on your own. You can seek God on your own, but I get the feeling the psalmist is pulling us towards community in God. You may need to hide for a while, and that's okay. Jesus invites that, doesn't he? Jesus invites us to come when we're weary and heavy laden, and he will give us rest. But one day, this I know, and looking out here, I'm going to say many of you know too, one day we will see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. So if you're afraid this morning, wait for the Lord, be strong and take heart, and wait for the Lord.